transition. I think we are streaming now. YouTube is doing that thing. I think we're going to notify people. Hi, Emmy. Hi, Aria. Hi, JD. Hi, Watch the World. Burn. Hi, Isabel. Hi, Marvin. Hi, Aurora. Hello, Alex. Hello, hello, hello. Joining me today, I have this peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And I don't know why, I just find that so entertaining. And water. That's who's joining me today for this live stream. Puppers are off doing other stuff right now. Hi, Darren. Hi, Dana. Hi, Yanni. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Happy B-Day. Today's not my birthday. It's happy belated Valentine's Day. My birthday is not happening for quite a while. All right, so we're already getting some questions. So I guess while we have some people in here, I will go over the rules in the FAQ. I'm going to try and not get too, I guess, overzealous about this because they always over-explain it and it ends up not mattering. But if you're new here, actually, even if you're not new here, if you just haven't looked before, you may notice that below me on the screen, it says 18 plus only. So if you're not 18, don't be here. If you need me to explain why you shouldn't be, I'm happy to explain it. But it's 18 plus, so it shouldn't really matter what the justification is. That's just my guideline. I also have rules and an FAQ. If you do not read them, I will not answer your question. I just can't anymore. It's too much for me. I've been doing these streams for over 2 years now at this point, and I still get people who break the rules. I still get people who don't read the FAQ. This is to facilitate a good experience for me, for you guys, for everyone involved. So please, 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 if you haven't seen a live stream before, if you haven't tuned in before, if you haven't read it before, please read the rules in the FAQ. Because if you don't, I will ignore you and it will be your fault because you didn't read the rules and you didn't read the FAQ. So, some things to keep in mind with the rules in the FAQ if for some reason you don't feel like reading them, and just to emphasize a few salient points. I have certain things that I don't talk about on YouTube, just things that I don't feel like I'm qualified to talk about in general for various reasons. And I don't give advice about long distance relationships, I don't give medical advice, I don't give mental health advice, I don't give advice on how to do specific types of edge play. So, if you're wondering, how do I do blood play? How do I do knife play? How do I do rope bondage? How do I choke my partner? How do I do this and that? I'm not going to tell you how to do it because I cannot, in the course of a live stream that's not face-to-face, I cannot quickly and concisely give you an answer on how to do those things. My answer is, if you want to learn how to do those things, one, they're incredibly dangerous, so you probably shouldn't be leaping into them. And two, if you do genuinely want to know how to do that kind of thing, you can go to an event in your local community where that kind of thing is taught and talked about. You can find somebody who can teach you directly about how to do that thing and give you feedback on your technique to make sure you're not going to accidentally kill anybody. Because it's not part of my risk profile as a content creator to give you that information, other than to say it's extremely risky. I cannot adequately teach you how to do something like that or give advice on how to do it just through a live stream. So I'm not going to go there other than to say you should seek your own resources. If you have frequently asked questions like how to find a partner, how to do BDSM if you're introverted, if you are wanting to find your local community, if you are wondering, book recommendations, movie recommendations, where to find gear, where to buy pet play stuff, where I got my collar, blah, 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 blah. That is all answered in the FAQ. I highly recommend you read the FAQ, and if possible, you search my channel for specific topics, because I know one of the first things that I ever saw, again, I'm not going to give medical advice. I do not give medical advice. Do not ask me to give medical advice. Do not ask me to give mental health advice. People in the comment section, please do not give each other mental health and medical advice, because I do not have the time to fact check people. There is so much misinformation and medical myths out there online that I don't have time to fact check doing a live stream, and I really don't want this to be a place where people are perpetuating more myths and misconceptions and potentially leading somebody in a direction that could actually end up causing them more harm than good. So please, I will give everybody one warning, but if you continue to ask questions that are against the rules, I will put you in a timeout until you can figure out why it is that you've been put in a timeout. That is just, for me, I try really hard to make these live streams something where we can all have a good time and where we can spend a good amount of time discussing answers to questions. But if I get, 10 questions in a row that are all against the rules or answered in my FAQ, that's really frustrating for me because I do put a lot of time into making those resources available. And then when people choose to not go to those resources and then participate in this live stream anyways, that's just like really frustrating for me as a content creator. Anyways, that is it so far. Again, I keep looking at the corners and I keep seeing people asking things that are answered in the FAQ, things that are in the rules. Guys, please, if you're trying to poke my buttons, today's not the day for it. But yeah, those are the general guidelines. Hopefully you guys can listen to this. I'll probably have to repeat this multiple times over the course of these live streams because people always skip the beginning and they don't look at this giant thing I have down here that says to read the rules in the FAQ. So I will try my best to remind people if for some reason they've missed this spiel and don't get the hint from the giant text that I have below my face. But yeah, otherwise it's a general like FAQ. You guys can ask whatever you want. I will answer them. I will do my best to go over your questions. I just have been having a lot of issues lately during these live streams with people like breaking rules and not reading the FAQ, and it's just like it's less fun for me to do these when people are constantly like not listening to the guidelines I set out, because this is the BDSM community. I think we should be intelligent enough human beings to know how to read rules if we're gonna go on like playing dungeons and like have to abide by their rules and like sign contracts and stuff. Maybe we should have a little bit of like, I don't know, reading comprehension and self-awareness before we choose to engage in kink, Oh, hi, me. Oh, I know, a little reverse sneeze, huh? Oh, honey. I know. Hi, honey. There you go, work it out. Are we excited by the smell of the peanut butter? Is that what's happening? Are we excited by the smell of the peanut butter? Hi, honey. You want to come up? You want to come up? Good girl. Just a little bit of a reverse sneeze. Nothing to be concerned about. Nothing to be concerned about. Okay, well, another thing is I read things in the order they are received. I try my best to stay like up to date, up to time on certain things, but I do usually end up getting pretty behind, so I'll try my best to keep up. Let's see, where do we want to start? Okay, Emmy said, hi, I finally caught a live stream. Welcome, hopefully you enjoyed the live stream. Love your tweets. I am glad you love my tweets. I tend to use Twitter as the pillow that I scream into because it's like the platform where I can do that, and sometimes people do things and send things to me in emails that just are something else. I don't know if people want to hear about the crazy emails I get to my email inbox, but like the last like 6 months have been really weird for my email because I've had the same email for like my YouTube channel since I started the YouTube channel. And for the first couple years I was doing YouTube, I always had like at least a 60% female audience, so sometimes it would be like 80% female. But over the last couple months, I've had like an increasingly male audience. Like now, depending on the video, my audience is like 60% male, which is really weird because I feel like I haven't really like changed what topics I'm covering, and I haven't really covered, I think, any like male specific BDSM areas. Like I haven't made a video about like chastity or CBT or sounding or anything, right? So I'm not really sure why that is, but there is a direct correlation between the percentage of between like the makeup of my audience and the volume of like bizarre like non-consensual emails I get to my business email, and it's like, what do you guys like think I'm doing here? It's very bizarre, and I wish I knew what people's brains were doing. But Twitter is how I normally vent about that kind of thing because that's just life. If I just turned 18, I'm introverted, how can I meet people? Check my FAQ, my 101 playlist. I have lots of videos about that. Okay, this is an interesting question. So this is from Jan. Is it possible to overcome a consent violation and return to the BDSM community? It is something that has been floating around in my community. Um, I mean, I certainly think it's possible. This is something, actually, I really wanted to take a class about this because there's a class about it at a convention I went to a couple months ago, and it ended up overlapping with something else, and I decided at the last minute that I, like, didn't have the energy to, like, talk about consent violations for 2 hours, so I went to the other class instead. And I kind of wish I had gone because I feel like the information would be really useful, but I certainly think that it's possible, but it depends on the nature of the consent violation and the actions of the person who have committed the consent violations, however, just one or however many of them there are, after the fact. And I think it has to be a process. It's not just something where you say, I'm sorry, I won't do it again, and you automatically get let back into the community. Depending on what it is, like, because consent violation can mean such a range of things, and sort of like default percentage can vary so much. Like, so for example, something that comes up fairly often in my community, like probably the most common consent issue we have, is two people who maybe aren't super experienced getting into a form of play where they maybe haven't. I know, honey, you're gonna fall off the couch. Trying to save you, honey. Um, where like they're not necessarily super experienced. They don't necessarily know how play is going to affect them mentally or verbally. They didn't clarify what negotiation style they were going for. Opt out versus opt in. Like, is it anything except these things go, or is it you know only do these specific things? That kind of like miscommunication about like what the nature of play was, where somebody will get into a scene, the bottom will get into subspace potentially for the first time, or unexpectedly they will go completely nonverbal, and then the top or dom will proceed to then do something that was outside of the boundaries of their negotiated play, or was something they didn't explicitly mention was okay or not. So you have a situation where somebody goes completely nonverbal. They either don't or can't use a safe word, because it's not always that they go completely nonverbal and they're like lost in subspace. Sometimes they're just like so afraid they just like choose to not use a safe word. And then it's not like they go out and like purposely violate a hard limit, but like it was sort of the like, oh, you didn't tell me I couldn't use a gag, and then they pull a gag out, and secretly that person didn't say that gags make them really uncomfortable, and then they had a gag in, and blah blah blah, that kind of thing, right? And those ones are just like messy all the way around, right? Because people didn't know what they were doing, they didn't negotiate well enough, they didn't know when they were going to be potentially going into a space where they were nonverbal, and they didn't seek consent when incorporating new things into the scene. It's just like it's a total hot mess where like there's just so many different things going on there. Compared to I think what people visualize consent violations as, which is like one evil human being maliciously, violating multiple, like one person violating like multiple hard limits in a scene, like without remorse, and kind of being a sociopath about it. And generally, that's not really what consent violations typically look like. There are definitely people who do things like that and are chronic abusers who like literally run people into the ground with like the sheer volume of like disgusting and consent violating stuff that they do to partners. But usually it's some kind of like combination of like oopsie things and like poor communication skills that end up happening. And I think in that case, especially again if the people are newer, if they're younger, if they just haven't really had the opportunity to learn good consent practices beforehand, I think you can definitely go through the process where like you have required readings they have to do. They have to go through some kind of mediation process. They have to go to required consent classes, and then they have to go through some kind of interview process before formally being allowed back into the community after like a blackout period, for example, where they're not really allowed to go to parties, that kind of thing. And that's how I've seen it handled, and I think that works fairly well. This is not necessarily something that like everyone involved is super okay with. There are definitely situations where people have had their consent violated where they want the person to be permabanned forever from the entire community, like never allowed to go back to any party, never allowed to show their face in public in the community again. Which, again, depending on the nature of it, it's not my place to like tell a victim what their feelings are or how they think something should be handled, but I don't necessarily know if that's always the most appropriate response. Because if you have like a 19-year-old Dom who's never taken a BDSM class before, who goes to a dungeon, carrying a whip he bought at Lover's the day beforehand, does a scene with somebody, and then like accidentally hits them across the face or something when that wasn't negotiated, I don't necessarily think that like warrants a lifetime ban from the community, because there's still a lot of opportunity for growth there if they demonstrate a commitment to learning in the future, learning from their mistakes, learning in the present, actually apologizing for what happened and making a commitment to make sure it doesn't happen again, versus the person who definitely knows better, the person who has 30 years of experience in the scene, who comes out later as having had a history of abusing multiple partners, simultaneously, gaslighting them, separating them from support networks, separating them from people who could be a sounding board for what's going on in the relationship, not showing remorse, not, admitting that they made any kind of mistakes in the relationship or that they acted in a way that hurt other people, kind of acting like they're too good to need to take consent classes or being unable to admit that they hurt people. Like, I think those are all signs where it's like, oh, maybe you're not really somebody we want in our community, like, ever. But I certainly think there's just so many variations where that can happen. And I just think in our community right now, one, we don't really have a good way of talking about different, types of consent violations, like where it falls on the spectrum from like mutual oopsie where like everyone involved kind of fucked up their end of the communication and negotiation process, which resulted in the thing happening, versus like somebody who's a malicious predator. And all of those things get lumped under the term consent violation, which isn't actually helpful for us to be able to like determine, is this somebody we actually want in our community in the future, right? And that's just really hard. So I definitely think it's possible, but again, it depends on the situation. And yeah, if people have thoughts about that or like stories or anything else that's happened in the community, I'm really happy to like have these conversations because I think they're super important. I think as well, like if this is something that's based on like a personal experience of like a friend or a partner who's been accused of a consent violation issue and you feel like they should be able to go back into the community again even though you weren't necessarily party to what happened, that can also be really tricky as well, because one of the things you have to remember, if this is coming from something, actually it could even be the other way around where like, the person who said that they had a consent violation issue happen to them, where they were the victim of the situation. You always have to be aware of like your own personal bias in these situations where, if you're really, really good friends or play partners or lovers with the person who's being accused or doing the accusing, you have to just keep in mind your mental bias for that situation and that perspective. And I think what can sometimes happen, that could be a pitfall of these, is we get kind of blinded to our own image of what we believe that person is. And what you will very commonly see is people rushing to defend somebody who's been accused of a consent violation issue because they're a good person and they never hurt me, which doesn't mean that they're incapable of hurting anyone. It just means that they haven't been in that situation with you. And especially with particularly malicious predators, they will often pick people that they choose to respect and not violate the consent of, because they know that they're going to need a bulldog who will be there to help defend them when maybe they get accused of doing something to somebody else. So you have to be careful of not falling into that mentality and, just not letting your bias cloud your decisions, and ultimately understand that like if you weren't in the room and going through what was happening, you really don't know exactly what happened, which I think is another whole issue with this, especially for FetLife drama related things, is you never really know what the full story is. Like, unless there's video evidence of exactly everything that went on, it does really boil down to different people's versions of events, and you're never really going to know exactly 100% what the truth is. So I definitely always think, believing victims, but taking caution in the way that you maybe choose to act on that information. Like, I don't think it's appropriate to like, I don't know. I have kind of, maybe this is just because like I have like a presence, right? In terms of like my like being on social media. Maybe it's a little bit different for people that are just like private citizens, but like I'm always really wary unless there's like literal mountains of like video evidence and photo evidence to ever comment about something in public, because one, you'll get banned from FetLife if you name names, so there's that, or it'll get deleted. But like stirring up the pot on social media generally doesn't actually make the situation better. What makes the situation better is the parties involved going through mediation, consent violators, being willing to admit that they made mistakes, that they hurt people, making a commitment to do better in the future, making a commitment to educate themselves and practice better consent in future interactions. That is what makes a difference, not people like talking shit on social media and big posting on Facebook, that kind of thing. But yeah, that's a very long-winded answer. It's just really hard to talk about these things because they get so complicated really fast. There's just so many different areas. Yeah. Yeah. So let me just check something real quick here, just for a minute. Okay, where was I? I feel like that was just the first question. What are tips for somebody that suffers from migraines? I have no idea. I don't give medical advice. I'm not a doctor. You probably would want to do your own research from people that actually suffer from migraines. Emmy said, hey Evie, thank you so much for your videos. They give me a lot of insight into BDSM and a lot of knowledge, so thank you. I don't think you get enough credit. Thank you so much. I feel like I get enough credit. I feel very grateful for where I am on YouTube. Like the idea that I'm literally less than 1,000 subscribers away from 100,000 subscribers is crazy to me. Because I remember when I reached 20,000 subscribers, and that was like a giant deal. And I remember when I reached 50,000 subscribers, and that was a giant deal. And I can't imagine, I always kind of wanted to get to this point, right? Because the idea is you have a YouTube channel, you generally want to be successful with it, you generally want to, have people viewing your content and enjoying the things that you talk about. But like, especially for what I do make videos on, it's very, very unusual that I just never visualized myself getting to this point. But even like I'll occasionally have people who are like, oh my god, somebody in my group like mentioned you today, and I was like all these people know who you are, and I'm like, what? That's crazy. Here I am, ate my peanut butter jelly sandwich on a Friday night. Who would have guessed? Thank you for hopping in about reading the FAQ. That's super helpful, by the way. Have you ever made a video regarding people that only have an online DS relationship? No, I don't talk about long distance or online BDSM relationships. If you're looking for advice about that, I do recommend going to Loving BDSM. They also have a YouTube channel now. It's Kayla Lords and John Brownstone. I believe for a time they had a long distance relationship, and so they can give advice about that, but I've never had a long distance or an online BDSM relationship, so I'm not really qualified to give advice about that. It sounded like a phone went off, but my phone is on silent. That was weird. That was weird. You're so close to 100,000 subscribers. I've been following you since you were at 10,000 subscribers. Whoa, welcome. That is... Oh, sorry, I said that, and I meant like, I was reading somebody else who said hi, and then I said that instead of responding to that. I know, it's so crazy. When was I at 10,000 subscribers? It's weird because it wasn't really that long ago. Because my YouTube channel, I remember like getting to all the big milestones. Like I remember getting to 1,000 subscribers. I remember getting to 3,000 and 10,000 and 25 and 50. And now here we are like almost 100,000, which is so crazy. Corey, that's my sandwich. Please leave it alone. Thank you. Hello Evie, happy late Valentine's Day and hope you enjoyed your Valentine's. I want to thank you for answering my question since I've been open in the comments for over a year. How did you enjoy your V-Day? I had a pretty good V-Day. We definitely did something different this year. I have a video about it that's going to be on Patreon really soon, but actually there was a pets and littles party that my local dungeon put on Valentine's Day, which has been going on for a while. They only host it every couple of months, and it's kind of random when it actually ends up happening, but it's always on a Friday night. So I've never been able to go before because I live stream on Friday nights. And they have you have to be there at a certain time, and it's so dumb. But it has made it hard to go. And so I made the kind of last minute decision to not live stream last week because I really wanted to go and see what it was like. Because I always really like pet play parties, obviously, and I like pet play parties with littles at them. Like I like having the shared environment, and I've been wanting to go to that for a very long time for various reasons, and I've never been, and I got to go, and that was super fun. And that was kind of the big thing that we did for Valentine's Day, and yeah, it made perfect sense. Um, I find a lot of your content is general enough, even as a male. There's a large amount of pertinent info as a newbie I find quite helpful. That is good. I am glad to hear that. Like I said, it's not really like I said, I don't really make anything I think that's too gender specific. I tend to stay like away from kind of I don't know, genitalia specific topics or like just certain topics that tend to appeal more to one demographic than the other. Like I said, I haven't talked about like sounding or CBT because I don't have a genitalia. I don't play with people that have a genitalia that want to play in that way, and so I have absolutely like no basis of bearings for anything related to that to even talk about it. So it's interesting to see like how different demographics on YouTube like do different things. No, Windows, I do not want to restart now. Thank you. Restart later. Thank you. Um, that would be bad. I don't want to restart my computer. Um, so I'm so excited. My Dom recently agreed to go to our local-ish dungeon meet and greet and consider going back for the play party. This is a huge step for him. I'm so excited. That is wonderful. I'm excited for you too. It is definitely a big step to go to a meet and greet and go to a dungeon. Definitely different people have different feelings about this, right? Because like in my brain, I'm just so used to going to dungeons and going to play parties that I don't really think anything of it, right? It's like to me it doesn't seem that intimate. Like it's just like, yeah, I'm gonna go to this place, I'm gonna have a fun time, and it's not about like I don't know. I'm just so used to it that I don't really have problems processing that. Like if I had a partner that just like wanted to go to a dungeon night on their own or go to a play party on their own, to be like, great, have fun. Like I wouldn't have any like issue with that. But a lot of people, like even just going to a meet and greet, like having a casual like no pressure, no BDSM situation in the kink community can be like really stress inducing and can make you I don't want to say that they're jealous, I don't want to assign feelings to them, but like it can bring up a lot of like insecurities or fear or like worry about what's going to happen because it's like what if they meet this dom and they're like the big bad powerful dom and they decide they don't want to be with me anymore and like there's all this kind of like background stuff that can go on or they just don't want to like see other people do BDSM stuff or they don't want people to like try and what's the word proposition. They don't want to have people try and proposition their partner or flirt with them or anything like that. And like, yeah, like just visualizing all that potentially happening could be super, super stressful. But I hope you guys have a fun time. I think going to a meet and greet beforehand is a great idea. I'm sure that if you go, you'll have a fantastic time. I am sure that the play party would also be super fun if you choose to go. And I hope that everything goes well. As a new male to your channel, I appreciate what you do for the community, and it gives me insight to the other side of the slash. Thank you. I am glad you appreciate it. And yeah, I'm very, very glad I have such a diverse audience. Also, thank you guys again for like sticking up with the comments. It's super great when you chime in. I really, really appreciate it. Love Kayla and John Brownstone. Me too. Obviously, that's why I just brought them up. I used to listen to them all the time. I don't as much anymore because I don't have as much occasion to, because it used to be that when I would drive down on the weekends to see Mr. Tex, because I used to not live with him and I used to live far away, and then on Friday nights after work, I would drive down and I used to be able to get through pretty much like exactly an entire podcast episode when I was driving. And then on the way back, I would listen to a different podcast. So basically, depending on what I was caught up on or not, I would either listen to Off the Cuffs or I would listen to Loving BDSM. And that was just like my little routine because it was like exactly the perfect right amount of time for like a car ride usually. And that's just like my little routine. And I learn so much from them. And I think they have just a really good way, I think, of talking about BDSM that I think is really realistic and down to earth. And yeah, they have a YouTube channel now. So if you haven't seen their stuff, I think they actually do like live recordings of their podcasts on there. I don't remember exactly what the format is, but it's definitely worth checking out because, when it comes to things like, you know, being divorced and like finding a partner in BDSM, or having a mixed household with like kids from different marriages and doing BDSM, or having kids and doing BDSM in general, or like long distance relationships or online BDSM relationships, like they all have things that they talked about that before that I just, I don't have anyone to talk about because I've never had kids. I've never been divorced. I've never been remarried. I've never had an online BDSM relationship. I just don't have any real way of giving advice on that because it's so outside my experience. And like, I do make videos talking about things that are outside of my experience, obviously. I'm trying to think of something specifically, right? Like, I've never done like I had that video I did about affirmation play, right? Like I've never done an affirmation play scene, but there's enough out there that I can learn about it just through like words and my own intuition that I can make a video about it, right? But I feel like there's just so many layers of complexity that go into a relationship versus merely just a general type of play that could be executed in any of a number of different directions, that I just don't have that experience, you know what I mean? Just don't have that experience. Um, every time I think of a question, I just think, well, I have Google, why make Evie mouth the answer? I mean, it depends on the question, right? Like, if it's like, what does the B in BDSM stand for? Like, you can probably Google that and get a good answer, but honestly, some things are just like, Google is your friend, but you should always double check Google, you know what I mean? Like, if it's not coming directly from a kink source, you might want to look at it again. Like that's one of the main things I look at when I'm researching for a video topic is I will actually Google the topic. Like, let's say I want to make a video about bondage, the B and BDSM, right? Like, I'll go and I'll read articles about it, and I'll read stories about it, and I'll read blog posts and yada yada, just to kind of get an idea of what different people think about it. And usually from that, I will get like myths and misconceptions and things that are like worth talking about to like correct people's misinformation on. One of the big things that I get out of like getting an article from Cosmopolitan or Self Magazine or a Medium or whatever is like the parts that people maybe don't fully understand, or the areas where maybe people's kind of instinct lacks intuition. That sounds like a really weird phrase, but that is generally where I get a lot of like ideas from for like talking about myths and misconceptions, because there's just so many of them. And like people just repeat things like they're definitely fact, and then it's like, well, actually not everybody agrees on this, or like actually that's not really the case, or like research has actually shown that that's not true, or like or sometimes I just like I don't even know why people think this. There's no logical reason for why people came to this conclusion about this thing other than like a gut visceral reaction, even if it has nothing to do with reality, right? And yeah, Google is Google. That's the story. Hi Evie, I absolutely love your videos. What made you decide to start with this content on YouTube? I feel like I've talked about this before somewhere. I want to say maybe it's on like the top cover of my Patreon page or something like that. But basically, I was getting started in BDSM myself. I was doing research. I started going to dungeons because there was one that was pretty close to me locally. I met some people. I was reading and exploring, and at the time, there wasn't really anybody else on YouTube that was talking about BDSM. Like, I don't think Brittany hadn't started up her channel again. I don't think Watch the Safe was the thing yet, or at least I didn't come across any of their stuff, which with YouTube's algorithm suppressing everything, it's entirely possible they had videos and it just never got suggested to me, but I didn't know about either of them until I was already making YouTube videos for quite a while. But regardless, I couldn't really find any information on YouTube when I was researching stuff for my own education. Like, if I wanted to learn about like pet play, for example, there were like a handful of people that were talking about it on YouTube, but it was all like gear reviews and like ear try-on videos, like, you know, the fur ears, like that was what everyone was talking about. And like that was what people wanted to see mostly, was they wanted to see like gear try-on. And I made a couple of videos like that, just like reviewing stuff because people were interested in the things that I had. Because I started out with more of a following on Instagram, like I was posting stuff on Instagram, and then people were like, oh my gosh, can you make a video like showing this thing, we want to see what the ears look like in real life. And so I started making videos about that. And then from there, just people kept like asking me more questions for reasons I don't understand, because I never pretended to be an expert. I was just like sharing my own experiences. I was starting to learn about things as well. You know, I realized that I was kind of the only person that I knew of, at least, that was a pet player that was in my age range, that was kind of doing pet playing that style, that like actually went to classes, that like had access to a BDSM dungeon, that was like reading books and articles and podcasts and like really, really learning about not just like cute pet play gear, but like BDSM in a general way. And like people would ask me questions about stuff, and they would leave comments about things in my Instagram, you know, posts. And I just decided to start making videos about it because I was getting a lot of questions, and I was realizing there weren't a lot of good resources for answers. And so I just started making videos because, you know, I wasn't finding a lot of content about it. I didn't really have anywhere that I could direct people to go for answers. And I was like, well, you know, I'm paying to go to this dungeon. I do have access to classes. I am learning these things. So like, why not just share it with people? And it really just started out as like a fun hobby where I just like being able to tell people about things because they didn't have access to resources, and I did, and I wanted to share that. And then eventually it kind of just became a lot bigger than I expected it to be. And I just kept going, and then I randomly messaged Brittany because I saw one of her videos, and I was like, oh my gosh, Brittany, it's so cool. I didn't know there were people making YouTube videos like this. I'd love to talk to you about YouTube stuff. And she messaged me back right away, and we realized we lived super close to each other, and I was like, whoa, oh my gosh, we live so close to each other. And then she recommended I go to this party because I just moved. I just left my old community, and I was starting to like try and find a new place to go to, because the other place was like 2 hours away, and I like, there was no way I was gonna be able to drive there on a work night, you know, to go there, because it just wasn't viable. And I went to the party, and I met Mr. Tex, and then I met most of the people that are still currently in my kinky friend group that night. It was so crazy. And anyway, that's a very long story of how I started doing YouTube. The end. The end. Oh, oh, there we go. What is some advice you can give about trying to find other pets / little friends in a safe way? Have I talked about finding friends specifically? I mean, just in general, meaning anyone in the BDSM community, be that for friendship, relationship, power exchange, play, whatever it is, your best bet is going to be meeting people in real life, like actually going to munches, going to dungeons. It's always going to be a recommendation as a baseline, because you're meeting people face to face. It's really hard to catfish people when you meet them face to face, right? Because they just, unless they're wearing a mask, like they are who they say they are normally. Like, not that you should just like meet somebody and then decide to go home with them like that night, right? But like, there's just a lot less likelihood that, you know, somebody's going to be lying about who they are, where they live, or their age, or whatever, you know, if you're actually meeting them face to face in a kink space dedicated to that interest versus like a random person online. And I know not everybody obviously has access to dungeons or can go to munches or has one that even happens locally. You know, that's all totally understandable. But one, you can either start something yourself. This is something that's always come up, and like anytime I've ever interviewed anybody in the pet play community, like when I talk to Pump Amp, when I talk to Pony Tromper, like you just have to build it and like get out there. Like you can start your own munch, you can start your own groups and things, and then like you will find out that like you thought you were the only pet in your area, and you definitely weren't. And just that nobody had been brave enough to actually start something yet. So even if it's not something already happening, you can certainly start to organize something, and that's kind of like outside of my scope to talk about, because I've never had to organize anything before, because our community has like a bajillion events. They just happen to be at times that I'm not available. But with that being said, you know, you can meet people online. I just generally don't recommend it, because I have just heard so many stories of people getting catfished and scammed and blackmailed. It's just like, it just doesn't sound like a good time. Like, unless you're already, the exception to that is like, if you are going to be meeting people locally, but you want to make like first contact online, like if you're looking for people in your area that are like pet players or whatever, and then you just like post something on like a local board on FetLife, and you're like, hi, are there any other pet players around here? I'd really be interested in like meeting up or going to a dungeon as a group at some point or whatever. You know, because that's ultimately going to end up with like a local real life environment, as opposed to like keeping everything totally online. I just think doesn't work. I just think it, no, I shouldn't say it doesn't work. Um, I should say I have trouble like recommending that, just again simply because of all the horrible stories I've seen. And like, if your main goal is you want to do it safely, then your best bet is going to be meeting people in real life. And if you can't meet people in real life, then you're going to have to sacrifice an element of safety in order to be able to meet people, and that's just kind of like part of the bargain there. Um, but Hi, Evie, or anyone who wants to answer. I'm a very tiny person, and I love corsets, and I would love to try one on. Any suggestions? Um, there's a shrug emoji and then the male symbol. I don't know if that means. Is that implying that you're trying to find a corset for like a petite, like masculine frame? Like, I don't understand. I'm trying to like make sure I fully understand this. I think regardless, like, if you want to try corsets, totally legit. Don't buy fake plastic shit from Amazon or Alibaba or Wish or whatever, because it's how you stab yourself in the goddamn ribs. Corsets are expensive. Good corsets are very expensive. If you are looking for sizing advice and it's your first corset, the cheapest place I know of that I would recommend is Mystic City Corsets. They have an Etsy page as well as a website. And if you send them your natural measurements, like your non-corset measurements, and you usually have to give them a couple things, like your underbust measurement, your waist measurement, your upper hip measurement, and like the length of your torso. They have like a whole guide of the things you would need to send them. They'll send you suggestions of corsets that will fit you. Generally speaking, you being a tiny person in a corset isn't a problem. Like, I highly doubt you have a naturally 16-inch waist. If you do, I don't know how it's physically possible. But generally speaking, like, places that actually make good quality corsets will go down to 16 inches. And most people, even me, I'm a relatively skinny person. Like, my natural waist is 24.5 inches. And that's considered pretty small for a natural waist. And I can corset down if I'm tightly skinny to 18. Um, and like, yeah, you being a petite person in a corset shouldn't be a problem. It's just about finding one that like fits your own particular measurements. And Mystic City should be able to help you. If you have a higher budget, there are certainly other options. Probably the next best ones after that would be Isabella Corsetry, which is sold through and they have an online website, but in person they're sold through Trashy Diva, which has studios in Atlanta and New Orleans. You can also go to Dark Garden Corsetry, which is based out of San Francisco. They both have more limitations in terms of style. Like, if you want the ultimate selection of style and shapes and sizes and like help with all of that, like, Mystic City has the widest variety of options. But like, if you kind of fit into a more standard shape of corset, then Dark Garden or Isabella Corsetry would probably be my other recommendations. I know there's a bunch of other corset places out there, but those are the ones that I feel comfortable recommending because I have experience with all of them, and they all do really good work. And yeah, if you're worried about finding something that's going to fit you, then Mystic City is going to be the best place to go. Yeah, I know somebody recommended orchard corsets. I generally don't recommend orchard corsets for people who aren't sure about their sizing because they don't really have that many style options. I know they have like a waist bee and a few other things, but like ultimately at the end of the day, if you're looking for like a waist training underbust corset, they have like 4 styles. So it's not really that much of variety. Um, Honey, this is my sandwich. You helpless beggar. I know they're both begging. Hmm. Pep, 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 pep. Okay, now that I've had a moment to eat my sandwich because I like apparently eating sandwiches over the courses of hours, I guess. Um, Liam asked, "This is interesting. What do we think?" And we should see if other people answer this besides me. But that's the bottom comment I can currently see, so I'm not sure. Um, what do we? No, honey, do not eat my sandwich. What do we think about the idea that BDSM power dynamics are an extension of real world social inequalities, especially since sex is a form of power? I think that sounds like some third wave feminism guilt tripping. I generally, okay, so here's the deal. When it comes to BDSM, I tend to agree more with the queer theory analysis of BDSM than I do with the mainstream feminist, this is reinforcing the patriarchy type argument. Just I just like, yeah, it's I think it's kind of a misunderstanding of the origin of BDSM power dynamics. Like, one, people consciously choose to go into BDSM power dynamics. So as far as it being an extension, I don't think that's the right way of phrasing it. I think it's less an extension and more a purposeful perversion and recontextualization of real world power and social inequalities. So rather than subconsciously acting out on like the inherent social inequality between, an older male and a younger female, you consciously go into that to like pervert and sort of take power back from those existing inequalities that you don't have a choice about whether or not you participate in. But in the context of a consensual adult relationship, you can play with those elements and choose to, in a way, like exert your own power over them because you're choosing course of actions that like are in line with those things and like want art. And I think it's less of like a submissive women are just reinforcing the patriarchy. Like, I just think that is just such a tired argument. It's like, it reminds me of how people say that like DDLG is pedophilia. It's like you just have to be, I think, kind of ignorant about like the framework under which these like BDSM relationships happen in order to just bald face believe that as like, yep, that's the motivation. That's all we need to know. Um, this is not to say that there aren't people who think, that don't think critically about these things. I think there are certainly BDSM relationships that are um, maybe kind of formed from more toxic, toxic origins. Um, Rather than going into them in a healthy and conscious way. But I think that the majority of people who are like lifestyle BDSMers who are, constructing power exchange relationships, the way that those are done is done in a very conscious manner. That's not just like, you know, being like, man has power, woman has vagina, that's it. Like, um, yeah, so that's that. Yeah, and I should probably clarify. I have no problem with feminism. I would call myself a feminist, but when it comes to the mainline feminist criticism of BDSM that comes from a place of ignorance about what BDSM is. I just think it's like, this kind of like pop feminist analysis isn't really like a complete version of this. Like I definitely, like I said, like I agree more with the queer theory analysis of BDSM than I do with any sort of like pop feminist critique of like BDSM is patriarchy, like type bullshit. Because it turns out that like feminist thought is like a diverse academic field with a variety of perspectives, and sometimes it involves bad takes as much as it also involves like good takes and important critiques, and that's like part of life. Um, I mean, if you're coming at this from, sorry, I'm skipping out a little bit because I saw it like in the corner that Liam responded to that. Like, if you're coming at this from the materialist perspective, I'm not really over familiar with that like framework. Like, okay, I'm not saying that like I'm not saying that people are perfectly rational, because like people are inherently irrational. They make irrational decisions all the time. I am not saying that there is no overlap between what happens to us. Like, it's not like we have complete control over circumstances, right? Like, obviously the circumstances under which we grow up affect the decisions we choose to go into as adults, and like the the way that we are socialized, the environment that we grow up in, the conditions we grow up under, the power struggles that we have affect the adult relationships we choose to engage in, you know, consensually or otherwise. And so I'm not saying that it's like we just have complete rational control over all of our decisions, but like I think the framework that like it's all this like subconscious like, you know, reenacting of patriarchal like power structures is really ignorant of the diversity of BDSM relationships and the diversity of motivations for engaging in BDSM relationships. And it's just not very like thoughtful, like, because what you said is like just as an extension of real world social inequalities. And like I don't think it's an extension of real world social inequalities. I think like it is an extension of the environments that we grow up in, and it's an extension of the circumstances that we go through in life, because you know our histories make us who we are, obviously. But like just as like inequality is the reason that we do BDSM is like I think just not a very complete thought. um, you just really want this peanut butter and jelly sandwich, huh, honey? Okay. Hmm. Uh-oh, what did I do? Getting the keyboard between you and my peanut butter and jelly. Let's move on. Right there. Well, hi, honey. Doing that will not help you get this peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Um, I wish it was summer already. Me too. I love the summer. Hi, honey. I love summer. I love warm weather. It's just the part of the year I always look forward to. Oh, okay. So following up on Arya's comment, for him it's more about running into someone that they know in the vanilla world and being outed, because he would lose his job immediately if anybody knew we do BDSM. He's very secure in our relationship. That is good. I mean, good that they're secure in their relationship. Not so good that they have to be that afraid of being outed. I can completely understand the reluctance on that part. Um, Hi, honey, you're so sweet. How do you refrain from getting jealous or feeling disconnected in an open relationship? I feel like those are two different questions. I'm going to handle the first one, which is how do you not be jealous in an open relationship? I think the first step to answering that is understanding that that's basically impossible. The way that we are socialized currently, open relationships and like sharing other adult human beings and other relationships is not really something we have a model for. And I think it sets people up for failure if you give them the expectation that in order to do an open relationship, you have to be able to completely avoid jealousy. Jealousy is just another feeling. It doesn't have to control you. And I think, rather than just denying it should ever exist, and saying that you can't be jealous, or you should run away from jealousy in an open relationship, I think it's more about acknowledging that jealousy is probably going to happen, and then coming up with an understanding of how you want to deal with that jealousy. Because what a lot of writers about open relationships will say is that jealousy isn't just a feeling unto itself. Like, jealousy by itself is not the whole story. Jealousy usually has some underlying emotion beneath it, whether that be greed or envy, insecurity, a lack of self-worth, a lack of confidence or security in the relationship. Like, usually something else is going on that's underneath the jealousy, but that we're labeling as jealousy, right? And so if you want to conquer jealousy, you have to understand what those actual origins of the jealous feeling are, and then confront whatever that is, understanding that the origin of the jealousy may or may not be rational. And you just have to be able to work through processing that, which is like way more than I can get into in this video. If you go to my FAQ, if you go to the reading section, I do have recommended reading books talking about open relationships and polyamory, and all of them have entire chapters dedicated to this subject. And if you're new to open relationships, it's well worth reading all of them. As far as feeling disconnected in an open relationship, it's actually a question I haven't really gotten before. I feel like, and I'm going to have to make an assumption here to interpret what I think you're trying to say, which is, when I hear you talking about feeling disconnected in an open relationship, what I picture is a situation where you feel you aren't spending enough time with one of your partners. And that's causing you to feel disconnected in the relationship because you're not spending as much time with them as maybe you used to, as you want to, etc. And I think if that's the case, that really comes down to having a conversation with your partners about like what your time needs are. And I think you can definitely have conversations where you talk about, I am starting to feel disconnected in our relationship, and this relationship is really valuable to me, and so I want to be able to cultivate that feeling of connection, and then give concrete suggestions on what you believe would help you feel more connected again, whether that be more quality time, more thoughtfulness in the time you do spend together. Like, if when you do spend time together, it's just like hanging out and not really doing anything. You really want this peanut butter jelly, don't you? No, not for you. You know, giving concrete ideas of what would help you feel more connected again, being more thoughtful with your time. Like, if what you're currently doing is just like, oh, we hang out, we like watch a movie, we don't really do a whole lot. If that's not like helping you feel fulfilled, then you need to choose to do something else with the time you do spend together. And then ultimately, you do also have to understand that your partners do have their own needs, and they might not be able to give you that extra time. They might not be available the way that you need them to be available, and that's like a further conversation you need to have with them as well. So hopefully that gives you some things to think about, but I think that's a good place to start. Hi, Evie. I just wanted to say that I appreciate what you're doing, providing an open conversation on SEAM-related topics. I refer people to your content all the time. Thank you so much. I appreciate that you share my content. That does a lot to help the channel. Hi, Evie. Sorry I'm late. No worries about being late. That is the reason why we stream for 2 hours, is so everyone has plenty of time to get home and relax, or maybe begin their day. I don't know where you live. Maybe you're in Europe. I don't know what's going on. So everyone, you just really want this. She's this shameless beggar. The heck? Little wiggly worm girl, what are you doing? So for people who don't remember, or maybe weren't here before, Bandit is, I've not had her since she was a puppy. She was other people's doggos. She had 2 previous owners before me, and neither one of them taught her when she was a puppy about not begging for food. So she has a really, really bad food begging problem. She won't steal it out of your mouth or anything, but like she is shameless and like, oh, trying to train an adult dog to not beg for food, especially one that's so small and can jump up on anything they want, is process. Actually, if you sit, I will give you this last little piece, okay? Can you sit? I have no. Good girl. Good girl. There you go. Okay. Oh, Corgi, sorry, you just missed it, buddy. She got a little piece of crust. She was, I wouldn't say she was good, but she didn't actively steal it off of my plate. Oh no, we've scrolled wildly off course. Shoot, where were we? Oh, there we go. Evie, when you are in the mood to work, do you have specific go-to thoughts that you keep pushing through? It can really be a grind. I have my own, but I'm curious about yours, if any. I usually, honestly, my usual technique is I bargain with myself. And I've done this like, in college, I did this and everything. Like, it used to be when I was in college, like, if I study for 2 hours, then I can watch an episode of this TV show. Or if I do this thing or finish this project, then I can do XYZ thing. So normally what I'll do is I'll set something up where it's like, if I finish this video script, if I catch up on my emails, if I do whatever, then I'll play this video game for 30 minutes. Or if I finish cleaning the house, I'll do this, usually cleaning the house, I just kind of do it. I don't really have to bargain with myself for that one. But like when it comes to doing YouTube stuff, I'll usually come up with something that's like, I get to do a fun thing after I'm done with whatever work I need to do. Or like if I'm editing multiple videos in one day, usually what I'll do is like, because it takes a while for like a video to render after I've done editing it, and I can't really do anything else until it's done rendering. So like usually I'll say, okay, I'll finish editing this, and then I'll go and I'll do something fun while it's rendering, and then I'll get back to work. Just something like that where I make time to like take a break and do fun things, because not taking a break is real easy to do, and I've definitely spent like 4 or 5 hours just sitting there and writing, and like my legs will go numb, and it's really not great. But usually that's what I'll do if I'm not really in the mood to work, or like other things seem appealing, or I'll just try to make like my office environment like nice to be in. Like I have really nice big windows in my office, which like helps keep me awake. So like I'll have the windows drawn, I'll have the curtains up, I'll have the sunlight in, I'll crack the door open so I can hear like the birds and everything, because I really like the sounds of the outdoors and the sunlight and everything. I know I should be in a cave. I'm gonna lose so many goth points for this. I'm not like, in a coffin or whatever, but like I genuinely really like the sun, which honestly, if you're going by true blood logic of vampires, just because you are a creature of the night doesn't mean you appreciate the sun, doesn't mean you hate the sun. Like, you love the sun, you wish you could be in the sun, but you can't because it will kill you. And so I just choose to engage in the sun with lots of sunscreen on. Which is like not related to anything you asked about, but that's kind of my technique. If you could only have one BDSM related implement or toy for incorporating in play, what would you choose? Only one? Honestly, I have to probably say rope, because like pet play I can totally do without gear. Impact play, there's so much you can do with just hands and like teeth and stuff. But like bondage is really like, outside of just like holding somebody's hands, you're very limited with what you can do with bondage if you don't have some kind of implement. So I feel like rope would probably be the most practical if I only had one thing. You can also hit people with rope. You can just leave it tied up and just pop, pop, pop. So, there's that. Oh, did my mouse die? Oh, that was good. Paranoia. How does one get back into the community after taking a long period of time away? It's so funny you ask that because I'm literally in the process of writing a video about that right now. So I don't want to spoil anything, although I would be interested if anybody in the comments, like anybody in the chat, if anybody has any ideas or experiences with that themselves, because I am writing a video about this at the moment. Honestly, I think it sort of depends on why you've left. And sort of what your involvement in the community was beforehand. Like, if you weren't really a big part of the community beforehand, like if you didn't really go to events that much, if you didn't really go to like munches that much, then like if you took a break, you can kind of just treat it like you're going back for the first time ever. But like if you were really involved and you volunteered a lot and you hosted a lot of things and then suddenly you just like stopped doing everything for like a long period of time, then I think that might be a little bit different. But like honestly, it's just like, getting back on the horse again. I think it's the biggest barrier, I think, is mentally feeling like you're allowed to be back in the community and that you're just like making the decision to go back after a break. I think that's the harder part. I think actually going back in, like physical act of doing it and going back to things is the easier part. So I think if you can just like, give yourself a pep talk and like feel confident in your decision to go back in the community, that's going to be really the key thing. And then just like, start off like you would like a new person, like go to munches again, meet all the new faces in your community, reintroduce yourself to people that maybe you didn't know that well beforehand. If you have friends that were in the community that maybe you weren't in contact with for a while, get back in touch with them, send them a message on FatLife, let them know you're going to be going back to things and you'd love to meet up with them or say hi if you see them around. And then you just go. You go to a munch, you meet people again, you kind of, make yourself known in the community again, you go back to parties. Maybe you don't play right away. Maybe you don't start, going completely, pedal to the metal, in terms of doing as many events as possible and volunteering as many things as possible and going to every single munch. But you at least, get the ball rolling again. You start getting it back as part of your life. I mean, honestly, I kind of think about it the same way that I do, like, getting back into any hobby that you've left for a while. Like, maybe you really used to be into... No, Magic the Gathering's a bad example because, like, the meta changes all the time and it's magic, so, like, never mind. But, like if you're getting back into an old hobby, like, I don't know, maybe you're really into, like, what is the communal thing that vanilla people do? I don't know. You used to be part of a local bouldering club, and you used to go bouldering all the time. And you had these friends you went bouldering with, and you went bouldering. You just start going back and start bouldering again, and like maybe your skill set isn't what it used to be. Maybe you're not as familiar with things as you used to be. You don't know everybody there, but you can always like get back into learning everything. So I really think if you just have confidence, with yourself and you feel secure in your decision to go back into the community, that's really going to be the biggest barrier. What do you think about playing without a safe word? Some quote experienced people in our local community do it, but I just feel like it's super unsafe. And should you always have one? I have a whole video about this that you might want to watch. It's called what did I call it? I think it's called like no aftercare, no safe words. Is this okay in BDSM? Here's the thing. I don't know why you put air quotes or scare quotes around experienced. Like they're not actually experienced. Because hopefully people who are choosing to do this are and have to choose to not do them. But I have been in rooms with dozens of other people in classes that are focused on consensual and non-consent and having relationships that don't have safe words in them. So people who are experienced, people who have 10, 20, 30 years of experience in one relationship doing BDSM absolutely choose to play without safe words. I think it is a bit high and mighty of us to decide how other people should choose to engage in their BDSM, what safety techniques people choose to use or not use. Like, obviously, when I'm here and I'm educating to a general audience that comes from a diverse background, could be anywhere in the experience gamut, I always preach best practices. I try to tell people the safest version of things that they can do. And that does include certain negotiation practices, using aftercare, using safe words, using safe calls when you meet people, playing in public. But people choose to not do some of those things. And it doesn't make them bad people or bad BDSMers. I think what matters is that they're going into that as a conscious decision. I think, when it comes to safe words, we recommend them because they are really useful and they are a good safety technique. But some people just choose to not play with them because they don't need them, because they don't want to, for any of a number of different reasons. And I think if you're consciously choosing to do that, if you are adequately informed of the risk of playing without a safe word, if it's with a partner I don't really see any issue with choosing to play with an elevated risk level, because there are so many different types of play out there that do have an elevated risk level. It's probably more dangerous for a new person to play with handcuffs and breath play with a safe word than it is for an experienced person to do a flogging without a safe word. For example, and it's way more likely the new person's going to play with choking and with handcuffs. It's way more likely. So I feel like it all just depends on the consent and the knowledge level of the people choosing to do that. You might think that it's super unsafe. It might be outside of your personal risk profile, which is totally legitimate. But other people can choose to have their own risk profiles. And I think especially when it comes to people who choose to not do aftercare, to not do safe words, to not do things that we would consider best practices, right? Or engage in elevated risk play, that is the time it is the most important to remember your kink is not my kink, but your kink is still okay. That is the most important time that we need to remember those things. Because it can be really hard to process somebody who is not doing play the way that you would choose to do play. I have problems with this, especially when it comes to rope bondage, because I see people doing insanely risky shit the entire time, all the time. And I'm like, are they know that they're doing that? What are they doing? And I worry because there are a lot of people who pretend that they know how to rope in order to meet people, and then the person they're playing with is also brand fucking new, and so they don't know better about what actually fucking looks right and what doesn't. So they are just the blind leading the blind, and that's a dangerous situation. But you might have people that are experienced that choose to do things a little bit differently outside of a standard risk profile. And that's totally okay, as long as everybody involved actually wants to do that. And I think there is a distinct difference between a dominant who coerces a new submissive out of not using a safe word because real subs don't need safe words. What is something at the door? What is Corgi barking at? What was I saying? I think there is a really big difference between all right, weird noise, whatever. I think there's a difference between a dom that takes advantage of a new submissive that doesn't know better and tells them they don't need a safe word because real subs don't need safe words. Real power exchange means no limits, no safe words, blah blah blah, that kind of thing, coercion. Versus two people who are in a BDSM relationship that have been together for a while, that have experienced play with each other, that know what they're doing, that know each other's tells, know each other's limits, know each other's boundaries, deciding to consciously play with an elevated risk factor where they say, let's try playing without safe words. Totally different situations there. I think it's important to recognize those differences. And even in the first situation, even if we're talking about somebody who's been coerced into not using a safe word, it's not like you would necessarily know that looking, from the outside in, right? if you're in a public play space, like there should be a house safe word. So there's that. But like outside of it, it's like you don't necessarily even know the inner workings of somebody's relationships in the first place. So like it can be really hard to even know kind of like why people are coming to the decisions they're at. Yeah, we just keep that in mind. Hi puppies, what are we doing? Hi. Hi. Yeah, hello. What are we doing, honey? What are we up to? I know peanut butter jelly all gone. Peanut butter jelly all gone. Oh no. Oh no! What happened to the jelly? What happened? Hi, honey. Zoom in. Oh, where was I? Where was I in the chat? Oh dear. Um. What's your view on head shaving? I don't know. It's cool. I feel like it's a cool aesthetic. I know a couple people that have totally shaved their heads. I've just been growing out my hair for a couple years now, and like I don't really want to. I don't really want to shave it all off. Not really something I'm planning on doing. I'm interested in conducting an ethnographic study of BDSM communities to supplement my degree. I'm just curious what the community thinks of the idea that a manifestation of real inequalities. I mean, I feel like answering this in a live stream of a YouTuber is maybe not the best way to get quality ethnographic information. But you want to look into, it's a professor at Gallaudet University. Her name is Julia. I cannot remember her last name. It starts with an F, I think. But she was my Cookie Monster in the scene. And she's a BDSM person who has kind of already done work like this, but in regards to BDSM as art versus BDSM as a hobby versus BDSM as a lifestyle versus like BDSM as a religious experience. And I feel like that work might interest you. I do, however, kind of caution like people who are outside of the BDSM community, like making judgments about the motivations of BDSM people, being like, aha, I know their secret motivations. They don't even realize they're perpetuating XYZ thing. It's like, okay, well, yeah. I would imagine you wouldn't find very many people like just outright, do you agree with the statement BDSM is acting out inequalities from real life? Like, I don't think you'd find very many people that would just blankly agree with that statement. Although that has absolutely no bearing on like whether or not that statement's true. So I'm not really sure what the point of it is. I don't think I get it. Oh man, there's just like little bits and pieces of things. Okay, am I reading that right? Um, where did the term romance come from? I don't know. I'm not sure. Tiara asked, as far as feeling fulfilled, ideas on what to do when your partner is sick for an extended period of time. Um, I think one, that depends on the nature of your relationship. Is this a power exchange relationship? Do you normally live together? Is this service oriented? Are you a little? Are you a brat? Are you a pet? Like, how do you normally manifest your relationship, and how is the illness affecting your ability to do that? Um, as far as being sick, like, how is their sickness affecting them? Like, are they tired all the time? Do they get exhausted easily? Are they sleepy? Are they bedridden? Do they have to remember to take medications every 6 hours? Like, there is a lot that goes into an answer to that question that I can't necessarily say in the abstract. I did kind of take a class about this when it came to dealing with like sudden like catastrophic illness in BDSM relationships, and I think really it comes down to flexibility and understanding that like, you know, if all else fails, like you just have to hold on to the very core parts of like your dynamic and being willing in the moment to kind of like work around the rest. And like, I know that it can be frustrating to not get to do your BDSM to like the level you want it to, but you have to understand that like people's, you know, mental or physical capacity may not be where it's at in order for you to be fulfilled in the way that you need to be fulfilled right now. And I guess sort of like just sometimes in life we don't get to be fulfilled all the time. I don't really know if that's like the full point I want to make, but like it sucks being not fulfilled. But I think prioritizing the health and like physical well-being of the sick partner probably takes priority over like forcing yourself to do BDSM that's actually not really good for their like long-term recovery. So I think you just have to kind of like work around whatever those limitations are, and I think just kind of be cautious about like not approaching this from like, oh, when are you going to be better so we can do BDSM again? Like, I think kind of approaching it from like, you know, being the healthy person and just kind of being upset that you can't have the nice things that you're used to having in your relationship might lead to some resentment. And so I think it's kind of important how you approach this and just like being really willing to kind of, you know, just honestly, I think the thing you need to do is like have a conversation with your partner and ask them what they feel capable of doing and like talk about what you both miss in the relationship and like try and brainstorm things that you can do to like maintain or like rework those aspects to work around your current limitations. Holy beep, a streamer actually streaming. I know, right? Who would have guessed? I'm going to a party tomorrow night with a local group I've never met the members of before. Weirdly enough, they don't vet people. Have you heard of this before? I thought all groups vetted people. I think you're misunderstanding what vetting might be. So, for private home play parties, yeah, you usually vet the people before you give them your private address. But if it's like a public dungeon that's ran by an organization, they don't really like vet people beforehand. Like, they just check your ID to make sure you're not, you know, a minor. And that's pretty much what they look for. They don't really like do individual interviews on everybody that comes into their dungeon because generally speaking, they're also a place for new people. And like if you have to vet everybody that goes to a public dungeon, then no new people would ever be allowed to go to a public dungeon. So I don't necessarily think that not vetting is a problem. It just really depends on the nature of the venue. And at least the clubs I've been to, the actual public dungeons don't individually vet people. They require you go to an orientation and you pay a membership fee, but they don't like interview you and ask you for references or like go through your FetLife friends. You know, that's more something that if they're going to do actual vetting, that's for like a private small organization or a small party. You know, it's happening at somebody's house, not like a public dungeon. So depending on what the setup is, I wouldn't be too worried about it. Um, is there anything that you do that's intentionally normal? And do you think it could be considered kink? I don't really know what that means. I do things that are intentionally normal. I mean, I intentionally go to the grocery store. I like intentionally run errands and I like intentionally like pay my phone bill. I feel like I do a lot of vanilla stuff, like, all the time, because it's kind of like how you live an adult life. Because it's not like we're living in a commune of all kinksters that are just kinky all the time. um, I, yeah, I'm not really sure. Do you think it could be considered, well, if it's like, I don't think, maybe I'm just misunderstanding the concept, but I feel like if I'm doing normal stuff, like if I'm just like going to the grocery store, it's not like I'm going to the kinky grocery store. I'm doing a kinky grocery trip. Like, I'm just a person. Like, I have multiple facets of my life, and not all of them are kinky all the time because that would literally be impossible. I'm doing kinky banking. I'm paying my kinky taxes right now. Like, it's just, there are multiple aspects of life, and not all of them are kink related. But I do normal people stuff because that's how you exist in a society. Unless maybe I'm just misunderstanding. I feel like I'm misunderstanding something, but I don't know what it is. Ah! Um, hello, wakey wakey computer screen. I would like to look at my comments. Thank you. Um, Um, Mariana said, "Hey, thanks for the recommendation on the books for submissives with mental illness and neurological dysfunction. I read the ones for submissives and dominants and thought they were very insightful. I am glad that you liked them. I think it was great to get to read a lot of people's stories about their own experiences with that and, how they made things work or how things didn't work. And I am glad that it's appreciated." I love how we have the person who is clearly like a poly econ person, just like in the comments being like talking about the commodification of BDSM, and yeah, I get it. I know. I I've read Foucault, I've read Baudrillard, like I okay. I I understand. I watch a lot of leftist YouTube. I watch a lot of like political econ and like okay. I can go to my academic background. I'm familiar. I don't think we have time to talk about Marxism and the fetishization of everything in the universe and the commodification of things as a way to incorporate like how do I even like say this in a way that just doesn't come across as like the most ridiculous thing in the universe that's like understandable to a normal human being. um like we just don't have just we can't have these nuanced conversations about like niche philosophical concepts like how in capitalism the dominant society like commodifies external things that threaten the power paradigm because it reduces the threat of the existing social structure. Like, I understand all of that. I understand the commodification of things, like the commodification of fuck, what's the one that had it's on all the shirts? Like the fact that like self-care, the idea of self-care got commodified, right? Like the idea, like some concepts in BDSM have been commodified. Some, like even the term like anarchy has been commodified to some extent, right? Like I get it. I understand. We can't really have like these conversations, and like the general BDSM populace is like not going into kink, thinking about like, I'm participating in capitalism, by like doing BDSM. Like that's not really a thing. But like we can't like we we all exist in the spectacle, right? You know, like we can't exist in society and do literally anything in life without participating in the commodification of our lives to some extent, right? Because like everything is about that. Anyways, let's not go there. I am bad at talking about things. I am tired. It's a Friday night. I really don't want to get into the weeds about political economy on this beautiful February day. Oh yeah, don't geolocate yourself on Livestream. Also, that's a good point. Her little face, I know. Bandit's face is the best face. Um, when people ask this, like ask me where I'm at, just click on my name. If anything to say, oh yeah, totally. Like if that's totally fine. I would prefer that. And then you can add links to things. Yeah, and it's also like it's for like when I don't want people to geolocate themselves, it's like for your own long-term protection. Just because like people like these live streams stay up. Like I don't have the ability to like edit your comments. Like it's like if you comment your location and say hi, my name's Susie. I'm from Omaha, Nebraska. This is my address, and I want to go to this one play party, this one specific dungeon. Like that's there for forever. And like I don't want to be paranoid. I don't want to be like weird, but like I worry, I get paranoid. I don't want anybody to like put themselves in a bad situation because like somebody now has their like real name from their YouTube account associated with kink and like a specific kink location and like their city and everything. I don't know. I just get paranoid about it. So it's for your own safety. Like more general regions, I'm okay with. Like if you're just like I'm from the southeast, I'm from the Pacific Northwest, I'm from Canada. Like those kinds of things are fine, but like if you put your like area code in the comments, it's probably not a good idea. um, Tiara added, it's a dynamic. Our normal tasks and such haven't been able to be prioritized. Your advice is really helpful. I thought self-play, a little time by myself might be helpful. That's also true. Like definitely self-play if is a good outlet. If only because I think if you're able to kind of take care of your play needs for yourself, that I think leads to less resentment for your partner not being able to meet those needs. So you're not like upset at them for being sick. You understand that like, okay, we can't, do everything we would normally do, but at least you're not like completely depriving yourself of something that's important to you. Um, and then just like spending time with yourself, making sure to take care of yourself as well. Because especially if you're taking care of a sick person, that can absolutely be physically exhausting, mentally exhausting, emotionally exhausting, and like, as much as you're taking care of other people, you also do need to be able to take care of yourself as well. Lean on your community, lean on your resources, help yourself as well, so you can keep going, so you can keep helping this person in the way that they need to be helped. I guess I'm just more used to parties at people's houses instead of open dungeon parties. Thank you for clarifying. I am happy to help with that. I know sometimes it can be, everywhere has a different way of handling things. Everywhere has their own techniques. Like I said, like personally here, public dungeons, you really like can't vet everybody that goes to a party because like there are hundreds of people maybe, so like you just wouldn't have time to do that because people just like show up to the door and buy tickets. But like if you're giving out like your private home address, that's very much a different situation there. 95% of life is normal stuff. I demand kinky grocery stores now. What would a kinky store? What was that sentence? What would kinky grocery stores have in them? I feel like definitely ginger. Uh, Lots of kitchen utensils. Probably lemons, onions. I don't know. What would a kinky grocery store have in it? Probably rice. Rice for sure. Frozen peas. I don't know. What is the difference between a kinky grocery store and a non-kinky grocery store? The world may never know. Are there any Evie Lupine t-shirts out? Yeah, I have a Teespring. It should be linked down below. I have lots of t-shirts. I don't have anything that says like my name on it, but I definitely have definitely got things. I'd like a kinky restaurant. Oh, for sure. Wait, I think I missed something for you, bearded gentleman. I think you had I remember I saw something. I think I might have skipped over it. Regarding. Oh yeah, you said that you left the community, but you didn't tell anybody you were leaving, and it was like really sudden. Um, I mean, it could definitely be awkward. I think if you're going back to the community, just like, hey guys, sorry I've been gone. Um, but I imagine if they're like a good group of people, they'll understand. Like life happens, like stuff happens. Like if you're going through like legitimate life problems, right? Like if you're like I don't know, going through a divorce or like your family has cancer or like you're finishing your PhD, like I think it makes sense that you would uh, like just leave the community and like I think people will understand that they don't necessarily like need an explanation or they're not owed an explanation, right? Like they like I think they would understand. They just I think they would be probably just more grateful that you're back. Or at least I hope that that's how they would react, you know? Um, where they are just like happy that you're choosing to spend time with everybody and that you're back in the community and they'll probably want to maybe even help you support you, talk about what happened, but I can't imagine like people get like angry that you were gone or like hey man why'd you leave and like I just think people will probably be more relieved that you're back and they'll understand that maybe you didn't have time to talk about them and talk about it with them before you left and then it wasn't really like it's not like a group decision, right? Like it's not like people have a say in whether or not you choose to leave. So I think just hopefully they'd be grateful that you're back in the community and like looking forward to reconnecting and everything. And if you were like maybe in like a close relationship with anybody, like if you were really good friends and then suddenly you just dropped off the map, that might be a little bit harder. Um, but I think it's just about getting back on the horse, and I think that you will be pleasantly surprised by what the reaction will be, or at least I hope so. Um, so much deep philosophical conversation in this live stream. I know, right? I try to avoid talking about politics. I've tried really hard to not take this to a political place because I also don't allow political conversation on these live streams because this is YouTube and political discourse is a fucking minefield and it's horrific and I really just don't have the energy to go there. So if we can, an Evie Lupine lunchbox, man, that would be cute. I don't know where I could design a lunchbox though. I don't know how I would. I don't know anywhere where I could just like put a design on a lunchbox, but I like that idea. I actually thought the exact same thing about the commodification subject, Evie, almost the goddamn exact thing. Well, I mean, that's like how it is, right? I don't know. There's not like there's not really a lot of philosophers who are like coming from a materialist perspective that are like, oh yes, the commodification of BDSM. Like I've thought about this before. Like I've actually reached out to do videos with people who kind of come from a more communist. Spoiler alert: communism, anarcho-syndicalism, who come from more of that background and like having a conversation about like that. Like I wanted to have conversations about the commodification of BDSM and like kind of viewing that in terms of like how what's the word? How our colonizer lives are by capitalism? I don't know what the phrasing is for that. But it's not a conversation that's ever really happened before. It just, oh man, just thinking about it just drains my energy so much. Like I love hearing people talk about this kind of stuff, but like me talking about it is, oh man, it's just, that's some big old negative energy right there. My brain can't, it's just exhausting being a political commentator, talking about philosophy on YouTube is fucking exhausting. I don't wanna. No. No. That's other people. It's for other people, not for me. Sorry. Is there a certain way to meet people in the BDSM community? Yes, there is. Check my FAQ. Oh. Kyle, the person said fucked, and then YouTube was like, blocked that comment. Good job, YouTube. Solo BDSM is a whole deep subject itself too. You don't have to have the other person. Yeah, exactly. Solo play can be very fulfilling in its own way. You wear the grocery basket suspended from clover clamps. Oh man, that is one way to. Maybe that's how you like weigh your fruits and vegetables. Like, oh, I want to get 2 pounds of onions, and you just have to like use a nipple clamps to figure out. No. There's no way that this doesn't end in a horror show. Just want my baby girl your aftercare shirt. Looking forward to getting it. That's so exciting. I hope that they like it. The aftercare ones are my favorite. I actually need to get a new one because I have the one that I got for Brittany years ago, and I wear it so much, and I've washed it so much. It's just, I should probably replace it at this point. It's still actually in really good shape. Like I said, I had it for years. I wear it at least once a week. I like snuggling in it. It's warm. It's comfortable. But it's kind of like my baby blanket at this point, honestly. It's really worn out. Oh. Did I close something? What happened? There we go. What's the biggest... What's the biggest toy you've ever used? I don't really know how to define that. Do you mean in terms of like weight or just like size? I don't really know. I haven't really had to think about that before. Or volume? What exactly counts as a toy? I've definitely done scenes that involved a large volume of objects, but I don't think any one of them in particular was like unusually large in scale. if that makes sense. I know people who could make a lunchbox. I'll get on that. I mean, if you put one of my if you want to put my designs on a lunchbox, if you want your own little personal Evie Lupine lunchbox, I'm here for it. I think that would be really cool. Oh, okay, there it is. I finally found the comment from Bearded Gentleman about I've been out of it for 2 years after being all in for a year and a half. When I left, I told no one, so I feel shitty about not saying anything and people like not liking me if I come back. I'm sure everyone, like I said before, I think everyone will just be super grateful and happy that you're back. And hopefully nobody is shitty. And if they are, then they weren't really worth being friends with, were they? Can we get, oh. Yeah, okay, there we go. Yeah, so Billy Bob, the mechanic, love the name, said Pup Amp was on Off the Cuffs, and he was explaining how fucked YouTube is about demonetizing adult content videos. Absolutely. If you're on my Twitter, you're probably pretty familiar with this because I basically retweet it every single time it comes up, but like, honestly, demonetization is like the least of the issues because there are options for outside funding like Patreon, which there's a link down below if you want to help my channel. There is Patreon. There's like Drip and like Ko-Fi. There's ways to like at least get something, even if not directly through YouTube. Honestly, I think the bigger issue is just like suppression of content in general, because like, you know, if people can't find your videos, if your videos are just like buried on the website, and like if somebody could Google like your exact video title and not be able to find it, then it doesn't really matter if you monetized or not, right? Like, it doesn't really matter if you like, it doesn't matter if you would get AdSense if like 2 people can find the video, you know? So that's kind of like my bigger issue. Like on top of all the other things that YouTube does, like not just suppressing the videos from search results, but like they fuck around with your thumbnails, they delete comments. Sometimes they'll even just like straight up remove a comment section and be like, nope, there's not going to be any comments on this video. Have fun with that. That gets really annoying. I've only ever had that happen to one video before, where it it was only the one time. It's only the one video, but I had one video that just was like, your comment section's been disabled, and I was like, why? No idea why it got removed, but it did. Could we get some merch with your name on it? I feel like that would be an easy but subtle way to meet other kinky people. I've also met 3 people here that also watch your videos. That's awesome. I could put something with my name on it. There's actually a design on the merch store. It's the newest one that I've done. That has like me and like puppy play gear. But it's not like something that has my name on it. It's just like a drawing of like a photo that I did. So that might work. But if you want something more subtle that just like has my name on it and isn't like a giant BDSM image, because it is kinky, wouldn't be able to necessarily wear that out in public just by itself. Yeah. Yeah, I could put someone with a name on it. I just don't know. I've always felt weird about that. Because the concept I had in my mind from the store was like, I didn't really think about it as like merch store for me. Like, I didn't want it to be necessarily about my channel so much as it was like about like BDSM pride in general, and like having t-shirt designs and things that were for like a lot of different people to use, because at least at the time when I was looking for like casual BDSM clothing to like wear to munches and, you know, at drink parties and stuff where you're just like, you know, walking around after a scene, like it was basically all just like crop tops that said like daddy's little slut on it, and I was like, there's a market here. I can make more diverse designs than this. So I just started making my own stuff. And that was kind of the motivation behind it. But obviously, like, that was a long time ago. Like, I think when I started that, I had like 10,000 subscribers. So I feel like it would have been pretty narcissistic of me to like think that people would want my face on like merch or like my name on merch. But like, I definitely think if that would be something people would be interested in, I could kind of come for the design for it. Honestly, I might just pay somebody else to make a design for it, because I just don't even know what I would do for that. I just don't. I feel like I'm just drawing a blank on like how I would do that. But somebody else I feel like would have a better idea than me. Evie bento box for littles or aftercare snacks. Oh man, love that. That would be a great idea. Use the BDSM emblem. Oh yeah, the Triskelion. To subtly self-identify. That's also true. But I guess if you're looking for people who like know my videos, then maybe having my name would be better. But like definitely also using the Triskelion is a good idea. And ironically, how YouTube likes to censor with no set transparency of the rules. Exactly. Like, you didn't know before you left that comment that your comment was going to be blocked because you said the F word. Like, because I get like, it's so weird because like somebody will say the word like pet or fuck or like ass or something in a comment, and it'll just be like, it won't be like an offensive use of the term. It'll just be like somebody using it in a sentence, like not in a derogatory way towards me or as an insult or anything else, and like it'll just get deleted. But then like somebody will like leave me a horrible comment without any swear words whatsoever, like saying that they want to like kill my family or like dox me or something, and like that'll just go through perfectly fine. And I'm like, what are we doing here, YouTube? What the heck's going on? You know? Clearly not a whole lot of thinking. Even the acronym BDSM is blocked from hashtag searches? I didn't know that, but that doesn't surprise me. Hi, honey. Uh-oh, we're stomping on the keyboard. Oh, dear. Oh, we're stomping on the phone. Okay. Hi, honey. Look at the bandit. Look at the bandit. Look at the bandit. Love me. Love me. Ah. Hi, honey. We're going to find a nice little... Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah. Oh, what are we doing? Oh, God. What's happening? Where are you going? Where are you going, silly girl? Oh, God. Oh, dear. Oh, God. Stomping on... You just want to run and stomp on the keyboard, don't you? That's why I have to hold you when we do these things, because otherwise you and Cordy will just stomp all over the keyboard. They are getting impatient because it is their dinner time, and they would like to eat dinner because they were not allowed to have peanut butter jelly earlier. They would like food now. Yes, please. Yes, please, please give me food. Yes, please. Yes, please. Where was I? I've been wanting to join the public BDSM community, but I just found out I'm pregnant. Very excited now. I'm wondering if I should wait. I actually just did an interview with somebody that is a nurse that also is in the BDSM lifestyle and has several of their own children. And we talk about doing BDSM while pregnant, both from being a top as well as from being a bottom. I'm assuming from your comment that you were a bottom. We just found out that they're pregnant. Yeah, there's like tons of the spoiler alert short answer is there's tons of BDSM that's pregnancy friendly, although that totally depends on your own individual circumstances, your preferences, if it's a high risk pregnancy, blah blah blah, you know, what term you're in, you know, like service submission. You could probably do that. You can even do like most forms of impact play. Like honestly, I think probably the biggest thing that I took away from that conversation is like you don't want to have like any sort of like sudden jolts. Like you don't want to be. You basically the highest risk thing is things that involve really like sudden shock, basically. Is like the biggest risk stuff, especially later on. But yeah, I know an interview coming out about that goes over it because I don't know why people like to ask me about pregnancy and BDSM. Like I'm somebody that would know anything about that, despite the fact I've never had children. I've never been pregnant. I don't know anybody who's been pregnant while doing BDSM. I don't know why people feel like I would have that information because I just don't. And I'm also not a doctor. And that's really the key for all of this because this does fall under the purview of giving medical advice is to talk to your doctor. Talk to your doctor. Talk to your doctor. It's really it. Yeah. But yeah, it can definitely be pregnancy and BDSM can definitely go together. I think honestly the biggest issue is like the way other people react to it. Like people have a visceral reaction to watching pregnant people do BDSM. Like, oh man, people stepping into women's scenes. It's already an issue. It goes up like tenfold when the person's pregnant though. Like for reals, they just are like, oh my god, do you know what you're doing? Oh my god, is that safe? Are you alright? Blah blah blah. Like everybody becomes a medical expert. Everybody becomes a medical expert, and it just sounds like it's super exhausting to have to go through that. But yeah, everyone has opinions. When you're like, I think it's different. Like if you're not noticeably pregnant, you'll probably be fine. But if you're playing in public and you're like really pregnant, people like freak out about it and feel like they should share their advice and opinions on it like all the time. So that might get annoying, and that's probably the biggest thing to be aware of. But yeah, like I said, interview and that's coming up, so look out for that. People are picky, yeah, they are. That is human nature for sure. What happened to Brittany Simon? Oh man, I'm sorry, Brain Drain. You're really out of the loop. So for like 2 months, Brittany talked about the fact she was leaving like YouTube, and I guess people just missed that. It's so weird because there's so many people who are like, "Oh my god, I loved Brittany Simon's videos. What happened?" And it's like, but she talked about leaving YouTube for like 2 months before she actually did. So, did you really love her videos? Anyways, regardless of that, she decided to leave YouTube. She's very happy, not making YouTube videos anymore. They're all gone. She still has a Patreon. A lot of them are on there. And she's available for BDSM related things on Patreon, but she decided she no longer wanted to have like a public presence talking about BDSM because of life decisions that she has made that make her very happy, but that make it difficult to be on YouTube, and as well like safety and security issues, things like that. So she is not a public internet person anymore. She is very happy not being that. I 100% support her decision. I know she's very happy doing what she's doing, and she's living her best life just off of YouTube. We have a couple of videos up still where she's in them that are on my channel. But other than that, like all her videos are gone. That was a conscious choice. Yeah, and I deleted that comment, so there's no need to repeat the nature of that comment again. Anyways, honey, so sweet. Ready for dinner time. I think we have literally a minute left. So if that is kind of everything. But yeah, Brittany also moved. So she's like off, way far away, doing her own thing, having fun, out in the woods. But yeah, having a good time. Not making videos anymore, at least publicly on YouTube. And that's that. Would you consider BDSM an art form? I don't know. Why not? I wouldn't consider it art for me. Like I'm not like, oh, BDSM is art, for me. Like that's not like how I experience BDSM. I am sure there are people who think differently about that. But yeah. First time here, I just want to say hello. Have a good night. I always catch a live stream at the last minute. Okay, but like literally though, Marvin, it's literally the last minute. So that's actually kind of impressive if you think about it, coming in at literally the last minute. We do start at 6. I don't know what time zone you're in. But it always starts at the same time, within like 5 or 10 minutes. Sometimes we have technology problems. We didn't have any technology problems today, which is good. Kind of lucky stars for that one, right, honey? Okay, all right. So I think that's gonna be it, you guys. It's 8 o'clock. I took a nap and I missed it today. Oh no! Naps are valid though. Naps are fun. I like naps. Yeah, all right. Good night, guys. Thank you for hanging out. Thanks for being here. I will see you guys next Friday. News, announcements, thingies, really, really quick before we leave. Do I have a link to this in the description box? No, I don't. Okay. But I am going to be in Dallas, Fort Worth at the end of March. I am teaching classes at a brand new educational weekend intensive that's happening. It's on Fat Life. If you look up Dallas, Fort Worth, it'll be there. So if you're in the Texas area, I will be there. I will be teaching. Tickets are on the sale now. And yeah, I should have made sure there was a link to that in the description box, but we're doing that. I'm going to be teaching in Dallas, Fort Worth at the end of March. So look that up. I will talk to you all again very soon. Bye.